So scrap wood projects. So what do we do with all of these old 4x4s and things like that we have laying around our shop? Can't really throw them away. Well, I guess you can, but you can't. But there's really not a whole lot that you can do with an untreated 4x4. But in today's video, I'm going to be giving you a few different ideas that I think are pretty neat. And the last one, it's a definite year-round seller. Okay, so for this first one, fall is upon us. So let's make something that will be fitting for the season. And of course, whenever you think about fall, you think about pumpkins and other harvest things like that. Well, using this material, we're going to make something pretty neat. Well, at least in my head it turns out neat. We'll see. So you may be asking, where do you come up with these 3x3s, 4x4s, 2x2s, things like that? Oftentimes, the big box stores actually give this stuff away because they're just using it as dunnage. I call it dunnage, but essentially it's what they stack material on. As you can see on this piece, it actually has a groove cut down the center, and that's where they would put their banding and go around their bundles. So essentially these are just stacking boards. So let's turn something that was intended to be tossed into something useful. Alright, so my idea for this block here is I'm going to make a few different size pumpkins out of this. So what I'm wanting to do is put some designs in using the table saw. And if I can, I'm hoping that these design cuts will actually allow me to cut a hole in the center, put a little battery candle in there, and maybe come up with something cool. Let's try it out. So even though I'm going to be making a few different sizes from this one block, I'll put all my grooves in now. That way I don't have to repeat this 3 different times. I'm going to start off by setting my blade height to 1 inch. Then I'm going to set my fence so that it makes a cut directly down the center of my board. Now, of course, you can change the depth of this cut or any of the spacing that I'm about to go over based on the size of the material that you're using. This board is 3.5 by 3.5, so these cuts are the ones that I'll be needing for that. And then since my remaining cuts are just going to be decorative and not going all the way to the center, I'm going to lower my blade to 1/2 of an inch and set my fence for 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll just make this cut between our center cut and the outside edge on each side. This is what it'll end up looking like. It almost looks like a snowflake. Definitely going to keep this in mind. Right, so now that I have my board all cut up, let's go ahead and cut these down to sizes. I think I'm going to do a 4-inch, a 6-inch, and an 8-inch. And again, like I mentioned before, you can make these using any size material. You could offer to sell these individually or as a set, but most of the time, I can almost guarantee that people will buy the set. Okay, so now that we have our 3 different sizes cut, let's go ahead and drill some holes in the center of these. Now these are going to look super cool even without a light of any kind inside, but let's give it a try. I really don't expect it to put out much light, but anything that you can do that's a little different, it's going to set your products apart from everyone else's. Now for this, my holes will be on the bottom. So I'm just going to find the center of my block, and then I'm going to drill a 2-inch hole in this. So really just drill a hole that fits your blocks the best. You can do this by hand, or you can use a drill press. Alright, so now that we have these cut, looks something like this. You can already see where a little bit of light's going to shine through. It's probably not going to be like a big light show, but you could actually bring these in a little bit further. You wouldn't be able to bring both of these in, but maybe at a 45 or at an angle, you could actually cut these like this, and then all of them would shine light. I think it would work. Now that we have all of our little grooves cut the way that we want them, I'm just going to sand this up. And since I made mine out of reclaimed material, I'm probably just going to put a clear coat on mine. These would look super awesome painted up with some fall colors. It's a beast. Okay, it's not a beast, it's a stick. Yep, that's going to be one of our final steps for this. Of course, we need to put a finish, something like that. But literally just went outside and picked up this stick. And that's what's going to be our little tops here. Just find whatever that you would like. I would say maybe a bigger diameter for the taller ones. But since all these are around the same size, really the same diameter would work for any of them. So let's get those glued on and some finish. And the little CA glue will do the trick. If you don't have CA glue, you can really use about any type of glue. If you want these to kind of kick to the side like a normal pumpkin stem, just cut it at a little bit of an angle. Alright, so I've got a finish put on those, waiting for those to dry. I'm going to go over this next one really quick because it's kind of a similar build. It's not a pumpkin, anything like that, but it does have to do with cutting the grooves in these things and lights. And for this project, I'm just going to use this little chunk of wood. Actually has a bad spot here where it's broke off. It's like a 3x3 maybe, kind of a cracked end. Again, 100% scrap wood. But I think by adding some grooves and some candle holders to this, we can make this look pretty awesome. Let's find out. And again, you can use any material for this project. Doesn't have to be a 3x3, a 2x2, 4x4, whatever. I mean, literally anything. So let's go ahead and throw some grooves in this, just like we did for the pumpkins, except this time we're only going to be putting them on two sides. First, you need to figure out which side of this that you want to use as your top. I'm going to choose this one. So that means to the left and to the right of that, that'll be getting grooves. I'm going to start off by putting a groove in each center with my blade at 1 inch. Now for this one, I definitely want the light to come out. I'll just set my fence to 3/4 of an inch and add 2 more grooves to each side. So while we're making these cuts, I'm going to take a minute to thank the sponsor of today's video, Sweet Night. I've built a ton of beds over the years, from farmhouse frames to floating platforms. But let's be honest, no matter how nice or sturdy a bed frame is, it's only as good as what's on top of it. And that's why I decided to try out Sweet Night's CoolNest Mattress. It's engineered to keep you cool and supported after those marathon days in the shop when even your clamps are tired. Sweet Night builds mattresses focused on real comfort and long-term support. They use CertiPure US certified foams and Okotex fabrics, so no harsh materials. Just quality construction backed by a 10-year warranty. The CoolNest system is designed to keep you cool and supported all night long. It incorporates CoolNest technology with over 10,000 micro ventilation pores. PCM Flux high-resistant foam balances body temperature, while gel-infused memory foam adds the plush feel that naturally feels cool to the touch. It also features a 5-zone ergo support system, tuned for your head, shoulders, backs, hips, and legs. And it's even certified by the American Chiropractic Association for proper spinal alignment. And you can instantly feel that cooling kick in. It's that kind of spot you don't want to get up from, especially after a long day of getting your build on. So if you're ready to stay cool and sleep deep, just hit the link below and use the code Matthew25 for an exclusive 25% off discount. Because great builds start with a great night's sleep. Now that we're all rested up, let's see how these cuts are going. And now we have something that looks like this. I know what you're saying, there's a bad spot on this one end. Well, that's what I like to call character. And now with those cut, let's go ahead and drill some holes. And just like before, you can use a hand drill or you can use a drill press. It really doesn't matter. But for this one, I want the candles to actually sit down inside from the top. So I'm going to use an 1.5 bit instead of the 2 inch. Based on the length of my material, I'm going to go ahead and drill 3 holes for this. Just make sure that your holes are deep enough so that your candles reach your bottom cut. I'm really liking the way that this thing is looking. You see we have our nice little grooves here. This is the end. This was actually the end of the board itself, so it still has that aged look to it. Again, I kept all this natural distressing here. And this is what it looks like from the inside. Okay, you see those little slits? They're on both sides. I'm just going to let the light out whenever we put a candle in it. So let's go ahead and get this cleaned up. Again, I like rustic things, so I'm just going to put a finish on it. But you do you. Paint this thing up if you'd like. Maybe a weathered whitewash or something like that. Regardless, it's going to look great. So we have that one drying also. So let's go ahead and jump into this last one. I'm actually going to use a piece of each one of these just to show you how cool these things turn out and can literally be made with anything. So this one's actually going to be little wooden boxes. I guess you could call them boxes. You're essentially taking a slab of wood, cutting the top off, drilling a little compartment down inside of the material, and then fixing it up so that the top goes back on and it can swivel. It's a really cool look regardless of what type of material that you have or its shape. I've seen square ones like this. We'll make a couple of those, but I'm also curious to see what a piece of something like this would look like. And the awesome thing about these little boxes, you can make several out of one little piece of scrap wood. But make sure to pay close attention to the ends of your material. This is going to be your lid. But I'm going to start off by sanding these. And again, since I'm only going to be using about 4 to 6 inches of each one of these, that's what I'll clean up for now. Got these sanded down, threw in another little piece just to see what it will kind of turn out like. And check this out. So this was one of the pieces of wood. But check out what was on the inside. That is gorgeous. I love old wood. I mean, I know you've heard me say it 1,000 times, but do not pass up things that look like this, because inside could be this. Just wait until you see this with a finish on it. And now that we have our ends sanded the way that we want, we're actually going to go ahead and pre-drill these for a screw that we're going to be using later. So I'm going to pre-drill and counterbore this so that the screw head will sit flush or below the surface. Now this hole is going to be for our pivot screw, so it's going to be in one of our corners. With it being this close to our edge, if you do not pre-drill, you're going to bust your material. And I'm just going to repeat this on the ends of all of my blocks. And for this odd shaped block, make sure to put them on the sides that you're going to be using for your top. I honestly don't know how this 1.5 by 1.5 piece of maple is going to turn out, but one way to find out. It'll just be a small box. So now with our holes drilled, we're going to start by cutting our lids off. Now these can be any thickness that you want. So I'm going to do some at 3/4 and some at 1/2 inch. Then once you have your part cut for your lid, you're just cutting the thickness of the box. The only thing that you really have to take into consideration is how big of a compartment that you're going to be drilling. And whenever I say how big of a compartment, basically I'm just talking about drilling a hole. And since this is just an example, I'm going to be cutting mine at all kinds of different shapes and sizes. Now with our tops cut off, I'll be drilling all of mine with different size holes just depending on the block itself. And if it's a larger block, you can drill several holes. Now these are just going to be compartments for anything that you want to store. Honestly, I think that they would be really cool for spices in the kitchen or even little jewelry boxes. Now that we have our holes drilled, we can go ahead and attach our lids. And for this, I'm just going to be using a little brass screw. What you use is really completely up to you. Just make sure that the diameter of the screw is not going to crack the box lid. And I love these things. These things are going to look awesome with a finish. And I really like the way that this long box turned out. Put 3 different little bins in there, maybe for different spices. And for all you hippies out there, don't be getting any ideas. Okay, so everything is dry and done. Are you ready to see what our scrap wood turned out like? Check this out. The wooden pumpkins turned out awesome. These little grooves added just the touch that they needed. And actually, there's more light coming from these things than I thought. Then we have our candle holder with the grooves. This thing's awesome. It just got me thinking that all of the grooves in there also. That would definitely shake things up. And again, my favorite out of all of these projects are the boxes. And the reason why is you can literally make these out of anything. Add a secret compartment, it's sold. Any size, any kind of scrap wood, it makes an awesome little box. So this video is just to show you to think outside of the little wooden box. Just believe in yourself and take that first step. And you know what that is? Get up, get out, and